Situation in Syria. I'm joined by Josh Lockman. He's a fellow with the Truman National Security Project and a professor at the University of Southern California. You just heard Nathan's analysis. How would you frame it, Josh?
Well, I think Nathan's analysis was entirely right. The legacy of Iraq hangs over any action that could be taken in Syria. The idea that President Obama has ushered in a type of muscular multilateralism since he took office. We saw this in Libya when the United States, Great Britain, and France successfully obtained UN Security Council authorization to intervene in Libya, stop the tragic atrocities that were occurring there, and ultimately led to the ousting of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. In this case, I think what we're seeing is obviously tremendous obstruction at the UN Security Council. The U.S. and its allies, Great Britain and France notably, have been frustrated, Turkey and Saudi Arabia as well, and I think the United States will pursue some type of resolution, but it remains to be seen if Russia or China will at least acquiesce to that. In that case, the U.S. will build a coalition and take action outside of the UN.
Well, and you mentioned the ousting of Gaddafi, but the situation clearly is different there. And Assad, and many analysts are saying Assad actually looks like he's turned the corner, is actually doing well in this war. So how protracted can this be? What does the United States want to do? And do they really want to dip their toe into this water?
I think that the United States at this point sees that a protracted stalemate between the Assad regime forces and the rebel forces in Syria is only going to allow for more types of tragic crimes against humanity, which we saw this past week in Damascus. So in that case, I think there is a desire to tip the balance in favor of the rebel forces and to weaken the Assad regime. We saw hesitation from Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Martin Dempsey, who said essentially that the Syrian rebel forces do not necessarily advance the interests of the United States. But I think at this point, the desire is to stop and prevent the types of atrocities we saw occur this last week. And essentially, U.S. credibility is on the line here if action is not taken now that Assad has deployed and used chemical weapons so barbarically.
Now, Josh, let me ask you this. Many analysts have called this a proxy war. There's a lot of players involved. Getting more players involved, does that make the situation better or worse?
I think that if the United States, its allies in Europe, and the regional powers such as Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Egypt, obviously to a lesser degree, now that it's occupied with its own turmoil, but if the regional actors that are allied with the West here come aboard this coalition, and it looks like they will, this will represent a strong coalition that can essentially try to debilitate Assad's ability to kill his own people. He's killed over 100,000 civilians over the last 2.5 years since this uprising began. We saw the reports, obviously, of over 2 million refugees. At this point, kind of under the responsibility to protect doctrine, if the international community does not act, it will be a tragic stain on essentially the record of international power and legitimacy. And obviously, the attack this last week only adds evidence that Assad is committing crimes against humanity and his own people and must be stopped or must be, dealt with at this point with military action.
Well, Josh, we've seen this reluctance on the part of the Obama administration. We've also seen the Obama administration, the situation in Benghazi with Ambassador Stevens dying. In Egypt, Ambassador Patterson, universally despised by both sides. The way this country, the United States, has responded to Egypt, kind of flip-flopping all over the place. This has not been an area that has been very fertile for great opportunity for the Obama administration. One can sense why they're kind of cautious about this, but do you think they're being forced to make a move at this point?
Yes, I think there is pressure for the Obama administration to act here. I think Syria is now seen as a moral and strategic pivot point, that if the United States does not act here, the U.S. will essentially lose legitimacy and credibility in the Middle East, given what you just described. I think also, as President Obama pointed out, the U.S. still remains the most indispensable power in the Middle East, and it has not exercised its leadership on Syria as of yet. There has been tremendous international dithering. There was obviously some diplomatic brinksmanship between the U.S. and Russia over how to solve this crisis. At this point, given the death toll and how horrific the crimes against humanity have been, that this regime in Damascus has committed.
Josh,
The United States
I'm
has
sorry,
to act.
I've got to cut you off. We've run out of time. I apologize.
Sure.
Thanks so much for joining us from
Thank
Los
you.
Angeles. Appreciate it. Still